Hello, this is Matthew with How Fishing 13, bringing you another reel service and repair video. Today, I'm going to work on an old Zebco 33 Authentic. I'm going to service it, oil it, grease it, clean it up, and get it back in the tip-top shape. Plus, we're going to super tune it. So stay tuned. Let's get started. All right, here's the Zebco 33 Authentic. This was one of the first Zebco reels that was made in China. It was also the reel that I figured out that you could add stainless steel ball bearings to super tune it. So let's get started. First thing you want to do is remove the front nose cone. It just requires a small turn to the left counterclockwise and slip it off like so. To remove the spinner cone, we just need to hold the handle and unscrew it by turning it to the left, like so. At this point, we're ready to remove this little keeper here, this E-clip. So I just use a screwdriver and twist it and pry it off. Like so. And then remove this first drag washer. This is a slotted drag washer. The grease on here is pretty stiff, but it's not bad. There's a fiber drag washer. And then the spool will come off. Make sure that you check that back here because often the washers stick to this. So this has got the spring washer, the second stainless slot drag washer, and the fiber drag washer. Okay, then you want to remove this. This is a drag gear adjustment. It's got ramps on the back. You want to remove it, and that's all you do with that. Okay. The next step I want to take is I want to remove this handle. It has a big long screw here. Okay, there we go. Alright, to remove the back, it just takes a little spin to the left. And take and remove that. Everything's looking good there. Okay, we're at this point here. You'll need a pair of needle nose pliers, and you need to remove this little retainer clip right here. Now we're ready to remove the bushings. So lean it to the side here. Just take and remove the first one. Although these look like ball bearings, they're not. When I first worked on these, I thought it was a ball bearing, but it's just shaped like a ball bearing. But they're brass or copper, coated with something like zinc, or it's not chrome because they wear off so readily. I think it's probably zinc coated for a good bearing surface. Now this happens to be a ball bearing, which surprises me because I didn't realize that they put ball bearings on. This was a 2-ball bearing reel, so they may have done that in the early. I've never seen this before. Either somebody put one on there, but they did this on golds. The gold had a ball bearing. So I'll set that ball bearing over there. So, and then there's also a little shim washer on here. I'll remove that shim washer. A little shim washer pushes the main gear over into the shaft. Okay. Okay, now we can remove this. When you remove this, be careful. Okay. This is the anti-reverse activation pawl, and there's a little finger here that goes towards the gear, and it sits down in the little spot here. We're not going to take this out at this point in time. Reason why is because I have to bend this to get it out, and I don't want to risk breaking it when removing it. Okay, we can take out the center shaft now. And it looks like to be in good shape. It is well worn because these gears are getting sharp, which means it's been used quite a bit, but has not been lubricated very often. So, and then this right here is a ball bearing as well. I'm going to oil these ball bearings, and instead of using 3 bearings, I just need to use 2. I'll take this bushing out of the front nose cone, push it out. It's just, it looks like a ball bearing, but again, it's just a bushing. But we'll replace that with a ball bearing. So there's my 2 bushings. We'll take out this little gear here, and that's the adjustment gear, and take out this little knurled wheel for the drag adjuster wheel. Okay, we've got this all stripped down, except for this anti-reverse lever, which I'm going to leave in there. It's pretty clean on the inside. I just need to take and wipe it down with a cloth, and wipe this down pretty good, and then we're ready to put it back together. So I'll be back when I get this all ready to go. Alright, I've got all my parts cleaned up and ready to reassemble. I'm going to put it back together in reverse order. I've got 3 bearings here, which is normal for a super tune kit for a 33, because there generally is always a ball bearing on the main shaft down here in the center. But this one came with 2 ball bearings, so I'm just going to need to use 2 of these. One of the first things I want to do before I put it back together is I want to put some oil on these bearings. They're shielded bearings, and so I want to soak in. So here's the 2 that I had. I'm using Lucas fishing reel oil. I want to encourage you to use a good quality fishing reel oil. If you don't have some, don't use oils like 3M or motor oil. Those oils have additives in them, particularly 3M, that evaporate and will leave a sticky, gooey substance on your reel after for a few years. So always use a good quality reel oil, or sewing machine oil is a very fine oil too. We're just going to oil these and let that oil soak in past the shields. Okay. I'll set those aside. Okay, let's start with the back here. What we're going to do first is we're going to we need to oil this main pinion gear here. What we need to do is we need to add some oil along this slide where when it cocks, you push in and it slides along there. We want to add some oil there. So add a drop of oil there and get that in there and let it slide along. Okay. We're going to take a ball bearing and we're going to add a ball bearing to the front nose here. And just press it in there. It just kind of stays in there by friction. Okay. Then there's a ball bearing in the back. We'll get one of the original ones, this nice clean one, and drop that in there and press it in there. Now we're ready to put the main shaft on. Whoops, pull it out when I... Right. There we go. Yeah, it's nice and smooth. Then before we put this back together, we need to take and grease this area where the anti-reverse pawl goes. And put this on. Now this goes on, this little finger right here goes towards the gears, so you want to place it on there like that. Just like that. Okay. We can put this little shim on there. Okay. We may end up taking that shim off depending on the thickness of the bearing compared to the bushing. Then when we put this back together, right down here, I'll bring my light over so we can shed some light. There's a little notch in this anti-reverse lever or pawl, and we need to get this little finger for this actuator down into there so that it works properly. So let's put that in there carefully, making sure that it gets down in there. Just kind of position it so that it goes down in there and it's there. Just like that. I know it's kind of hard to see, but it's in there. Okay. Now we're ready to put the bearings on the handle. Here's the one that came out of it. We'll put that one on first. Goes right in here like so. And what I can do to get this to go down there all the way to seat it is use the handle, but I'm going to use another bearing on top of that, and then I'm going to take this screw and I'm going to use it to seat that down in there, just like that. Take my screwdriver and get the second one out, get that bushing out, and then I'm going to use this keeper and get that keeper down in there. And we need to move this over here just a little bit to make sure it's all lined up. And we'll put the keeper in and snap it in place. So the first bearing's in. Let's do the second bearing. Get on the handle, take this bushing, take the screw, and seat that in there. This one goes in there and seats in with some friction, so you gotta give it a good little push. And there it is. Then we'll take out this extra bushing. There we go. All right. Now we're going to grease the main gear and the pinion gear at the same time. So we'll go around here. Now you only need to put as much grease in there just to barely cover those the gears, because if you put more on there than you need to, it just squishes off and never gets back on there. So you just go around and grease it up. I got a little too much on there, but that's okay. Okay, that's greased up the pinion and the main spur gear. I'll put a little bit of grease on here. I'll put some grease right on this little spot right here on this push button because it goes against the end of there. And that's all the grease that we really need. There's some grease on the gears back here for the anti-reverse. This is a good time to also take the handle and check your anti-reverse, make sure it's working properly. Yep, it's working just fine. Turn it off. Clicker works. Okay, and it goes back for the bait alert. Okay, excellent. Actually, this is a good time to put the handle on. Now, if you like to reel with your left hand, just put this on over here. I like to reel with my left hand, but I also go fishing with other people that don't. So I'm going to put it over here on the right side. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on the threads just to keep those in good shape. And put the handle on there and put it on there good and snug. One of the things you want to do that hardly ever gets done is you want to take and drop some oil down here. Just a couple drops is all it takes to lubricate the handle. This is something that probably nobody ever does, but it does need some oil down in there. These never get oiled. These ones are in poor shape. Okay, now we're ready to put the back cover on. I already greased the button. Okay, next we want to do is we want to put this drag wheel back together. And this little piece right here is, it can get wet and it tends to corrode. I've seen these in pretty poor shape. So put some grease on it to protect it. Rub grease all over it. And that's a good coating that will protect it from water and moisture, rain, whatever. Now this has a clicker on it. What you want to do is you want to put it on, it needs to go on this way right here. There's a little clicker that so let's line that up. Put this in here. It needs to seat all the way down there just like that. Okay, excellent. Okay, now we can proceed with the front. Okay, the first thing that goes on is this drag gear right here, and it needs to go and position it down on this side like this. That's all the way loose, and it'll make it easier for you to get the E-clip put on because you're not fighting against a bunch of tension. But we need to grease these little ramps right here, so apply a small amount of grease to this groove right here that has the ramps, because that drag gear will slide along in there. So there's a little bit of grease on there, and position is just like that, so it's all the way loose. The next thing is this little spring gear right here. So we want to apply some grease in this groove right here. It doesn't require very much, just a small amount, just enough to get a thin coat on there. We'll put some grease on these gears right here and put this right down there in the groove. The next thing is a slotted drag washer. So we apply some grease and then put the slotted drag washer on. There's a slot in the shaft, and that little part goes down there. Then we grease it. small amount of grease and put one of our drag washers on there. These happen to be fiber drag washers. When you take yours apart, if it's a newer model, you'll have a Teflon drag washer. They're both very durable. Then we apply a layer of grease. And then we want to put the spool on. Before we put the spool on, we want to put grease on the main shaft here to lubricate that spool when you get a big fish and it pulls out a bunch of drag. Okay, then this side with the little knurls, they go down like that. Okay, this line's kind of old, but it's about a 10-pound test, and I'll replace it before I take this reel fishing. Okay, we want to apply a little bit of grease on the front of the spool here. Put on the last fiber drag washer. Put some grease on it. And put on the other slot drag washer. I like to put a little bit of grease on there. And put a little grease on the front here. This is where the spinner cone, it rides around on there. There's little cams. See those little cams in there? They drive around on there. Then we put on our keeper, our little E-clip. Okay, there, that's on. All right, let's turn our attention to servicing this. I want to take and oil the hinges here, with just a drop of oil on the hinges, and work that in there. Okay. I want to take and put a drop of oil on these little cams. They're actually little wheels that are intended to spin around. Put a drop of oil underneath it, and I'll put a little tiny bit of grease right here. Okay, that's ready to go. Now be careful, the springs on here, you can get line underneath there and it can bend those. You can always service them, but they got a little keeper right here. You see that little keeper right there for the spring to come in. If they ever get undone like that, you just take and you put them back in there. In that little keeper right there. And then the spring right here on the front goes in there like that. But sometimes you do have line that can get underneath the spool and the front spinner cone and get tangled in there. Sometimes it can bend these a little bit, but you can bend them back together. If they're really bad, you may need to buy a new spinner cone. I don't know if Zebco sells them anymore, but you can find some online, like on one of your auctions. Okay. We'll spin this back on clockwise. Just keep spinning it so that the pins come all the way out. And then the anti-reverse will kick in gear and you can tighten it down. Don't tighten it too tight. You want to be able to get it off. Let's test the drag. Okay, that's all the way loose. We'll tighten it all the way. That's good. 4 to 5 pounds of pull is about all you need on there. You may want it looser if you're fishing for small fish that have soft mouths. Like I know that some trout have small mouths where you may want to tighten the drag all the way up for those bass. Okay, that's doing well. Put this through the hole on your spinner cone. The shield goes up. The little drain hole for the water when you're reeling in goes down to the bottom. Lock that in place. Yep. And your reel's done. And we got a nice super tuned reel. You can do some not good fishing with that reel now. That's like a Zebco Gold or a Platinum. The Platinum had 4 ball bearings, like this Platinum right here. The Platinum is heavier because it has a metal frame. But basically, you've super tuned this so that now you have basically, it's like a Platinum. It has four ball bearings. It's a good solid reel. Give you lots of years of service as long as you take care of it. Parts are really hard to find, so I would recommend take good care of these. Clean it up every year and service it every year, and you'll have a reel that will last you for years to come. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.